How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We have with us Tyler Hill from Tyler Hill Investing. Tyler, good to have you on. We're going to be going over what the market looks like. We're going to be going over specific cryptos. We're going to be going over technical analysis, market sentiment, favorite cryptos, all that. Tyler, thanks for joining.
No, absolutely. I appreciate you having me, my guy.
Yeah, definitely. We'll leave a link to his video or his channel underneath the video. Also, some links. We're working together on HGACCESS, private community that's been growing like mad. We have hundreds of people that have already signed up. So I'll leave that underneath the video and a link to Margex so you can trade on leverage in case you're interested, because we will be talking about technical analysis, which is perfect for trading. Tyler, first, let me hear kind of your feeling on the market right now. We've had a lot of volatility today, some scares. What do you think?
I think it's normal, and that's kind of what I talked about over in HGACCESS on the show that I did there, and then on my own channel. It's just, I think it's normal, man. And the funny thing about it is, like, we saw such a long time of red. We saw so much bearishness for an extensive period of time that in moments like this where things have been green and things have been good, people almost immediately forgot crazily like what that bearishness felt like. So the moment you see that jerk the other direction, the moment you see 10%, 15% to the downside, everyone kind of goes into a panic like, oh no, what is this? What's happening? And it just kind of causes this freak out. And what I will explain, and I will show in the charts in a little bit here when we get to it, is like where we are seeing the type of volatility we're seeing right now, seeing this type of pullback, seeing a little bit of liquidations to the downside, it's rather normal. It kind of happens a lot. And so although a lot of people are kind of worried, like, what does this mean with the, ETF catalyst and the halving catalyst and stuff like that, they're worried about the impact it may have on the market. To me, I just think it's normal, and I'm not really all that worried about it, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think people are starting to come in for the first time into the market, and they don't understand this is completely normal. Like this, what happened during the bear market's not normal, where we're at within a couple dollars on the Bitcoin chart for an hour or 2 hours. That's not normal. It moves around thousands of dollars a day during the bull market. And this is just like the beginning of the volatility. So there are going to be fake outs, people spreading FUD, people spreading false rumors. I mean, I saw right after they said that the ETFs are not going to be approved, I saw that all of a sudden, I think it was the SEC's meeting with the NASDAQ and meeting with the New York Stock Exchange and other entities to talk about the ETFs, like finalizing it. So yeah, lots of volatility. Okay, so we went over some of the general market feelings. Can you show me where we're at on the Bitcoin chart?
Yeah, let me pull it up here.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing right now with the general market, let's go with this one. That works the best. Okay, so I'm not going to get super, super crazily technical about this, right? But just in general, let's kind of zoom all the way out a little bit. Don't mind all this crazy drawing up here. I kind of go on these little rants sometimes. But what we're seeing from a more general perspective on the Bitcoin chart is rather simple, and it's rather common. Okay, so what I've come to realize is that this market is not only extremely cyclical in the way that it moves, it's extremely cyclical in the time frames in which it makes those moves, right? And so generally what we'll see is there's an extended period of time. I would like to say there are some exceptions, right? But it's usually about 111 weeks or 111 of these bars that we will see crypto in general in a macro uptrend, right? That's just normally what it does. It was about 111 weeks here, 111 weeks here. And while the 111 weeks actually, in my opinion, started December of 2022. Because if you look at Bitcoin from a macro perspective since then, anyone who would be looking at this a few years from now would say that this was the beginning of the bull market right here, right? Although it didn't feel like it, that's what it was, okay? And so at the same time, what we also notice are a couple things. There's one specific area where Bitcoin's price itself stalls a little bit. It will almost always stall in the same place, and that's called the 786 to 618 Fibonacci retracement zone. Now, I don't want to get too, again, crazy technical in the description of this, but the easiest way that I think about it is this, right? All of the lines and the charts and the shapes and all this, it's not real, right? It's not really real. Some people say it's like looking at the stars and guessing how your mood's going to be for the day, right? It's not really real, but there is some credibility in it in the sense that it is an accurate depiction of what historically has happened amongst traders, okay? Now, whenever you look at a Fibonacci zone, the whole basis of the Fibonacci zone is that historically speaking, these certain levels have the highest percent chance of seeing a rejection to the opposite direction. That's the easiest way to think about it, okay? So if I'm looking at a Fibonacci level, let's go ahead and let's get this pulled back up. Let me clear off this a little bit. Boom, and then boom. Let me pull this back up. Whenever we're looking at something like this, Okay, the easiest way that you can go about it is thinking, okay, you draw your Fibonacci from your swing to swing. So in this example, we're going to go swing high down to swing low. This is your all-time high to your macro bottom. Okay. In between there, it's going to produce us some of these Fibonacci levels. We have 0.786, 0.618. Those are the only two I personally care about. There are more. I just don't think they're that important. Okay. Now, what's interesting about it is that the 0.786 to the 0.618 level has, in my opinion, from what I've studied and many other analysts have studied, it is historically the level where you will see the most rejection in the opposite direction. So say if we're going down towards the 786 level, the likelihood of a bounce back to the upside is extremely high. Similarly, if we're going up towards the 786 level, the likelihood of a rejection back to the downside is extremely high. Okay. The fun part about that is I look at it as being a door for the upside or a door for the downside. So if I'm walking up to this door, if I don't know how to open the door, I might just run into the door and bounce back a couple steps. But once I finally understand how to open this door, once we finally clear that door, that usually is a level in which will provide us an ability, some would say, to really make some runs back to the upside. So with all of that in mind, just to give a general premise of what a Fibonacci level is, what you can see is that historically speaking for Bitcoin, this is the level, the 618 to 786 box is the level that we will see it stall. You can see here, we got up towards it. This is back 2015. We got up towards it. We ran into a bit of resistance, saw this huge wick back to the downside. Took us months to get back up to this level. What level is that? 618 level. What happens after that? We break to the upside. Where do we stall out? The 786 box. Almost immediately. We go straight up to it. We stall out there. We back test. Where do we back test to and establish support? The 618 level. And so I think you can see what I'm saying is that this level is extremely important. And the moment we broke it, back tested, and it went on, we went into the bull market. Yeah. Let's look at the next bull market as an example. Where did we get all this resistance? We were in a bear market, put in the bottom. We then rally straight up towards what? The 786 level. What happens after that? We get rejected to the downside. We fall back down. We bounce back up to what? The 618 level. We fall back down. We bounce back up to what? The 618 level. We go back up. We hold support on what? The 618 level. Boom. Then we break to the upside for a bull market. Okay. You can see this is the level we stalled at here. This, the level we stalled at here. Where are we at right now as we speak? 618, 786 level. So whenever we're now starting to see some of the interactions where we're stalling, we're going sideways, we're getting these huge jerks to the downside, it's normal. Why is it normal? Because that's where we are expected to see the highest amount of liquidity for the opposite direction. And so all of that to say to me, on the Bitcoin's perspective, this is normal and this is what we should expect to happen at a level like this. But from a good perspective, once we finally break this level, whether it looks like this, whether it looks like this, whether it looks like this, once we break it, then the door's open to what I believe to be $104,000. So that's what I'm seeing from a macro perspective. Obviously, the short term is a little bit more crazy, but from a macro perspective, it's all very, very clear, in my opinion.
So we broke through the 0.618. What's the next level you said again?
So we cleared through the 0.618. The next level that we would need to keep in mind is the 786, but that's not up until $50,960. But is that a shock? 50,000 is a huge number just in general. So it wouldn't shock me even if we do see one strong wick to the upside. Maybe we hit 50K before we do see some type of more macro pullback. It's hard to tell. But yeah, the 786 level at about 50,000.
And I know a lot of people are looking at 48,000 as well, because that's where we bounced to at one point when we started to go into the bear market. But we don't cover fibs on this channel really too much. So I appreciate you covering that. We do, I think I notice a lot of the same patterns where I'm just simplifying it even more. Like we get rejected at one level and we eventually flip that into support. A lot of the time those are at fib levels from what I can see. But I just look at it as like flipping resistance into support, but that clears up a lot and gives more information, I think, to people that don't know it. So you're saying $104,000 on Bitcoin. I saw a video that you posted recently. I even included a clip of it on Solana. So you're talking about Bitcoin maybe 2.5x or so from here. Let me know what you're thinking about Solana and the Solana chart, because I heard you saying maybe 20x from here.
Right. So that was one that I said, and it was kind of just like, I'm going to throw it out there and see what people say. Because, the people who weren't getting in on Solana when we were over on the channel, I mean, I've talked about Solana literally 2 or 3 times every week for the last 3 years, 2 years straight. And so we were getting in here, and there's people who hated it then, They still hated it now, and I kind of threw that out there at them, like, yeah, they're going to hate this one.
Yeah.
But from a Fibonacci perspective, okay, and people can call it shapes and stars and all the stuff that they want. I agree, but it works, right? From a Fibonacci perspective, your mass extension here, okay? So, like, what I would assume to be the absolute most that it would go, which is still a reach, it's set at $2,230. Now, market cap wise, that's ridiculous. And I'm vastly aware of that, right? Market cap wise, I mean, that puts it into the trillions, and I understand. But I think if this does become, a multi-$10 trillion market, having a Solana or having altcoins over $1 trillion is well possible. But looking at this one from a Fibonacci perspective, again, it's the same approach. Where did Solana finally slow down? The 786 level. And it's not like we're just guessing it's the 786 level. It's almost exactly on it. We zoomed all the way in. We went above it for maybe 3 hours before getting pushed back to the downside. You see what happened with Solana here, right? We started to go up, 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 up. Where was the first moment that we truly stalled out a little bit? The moment we hit the 618 box. And I don't even know if StreamYard's good enough to show you. That's an exact touch, okay? Exact touch. We get there. We go sideways for a month. We break into it. We back test. We hold some support. We wick down, but we hold support. Use that support to go straight up. Where does this run straight up in that? The 786 level. And that's the thing. It's like when people say, it's just lines and stars and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's cool, but these lines and stars really, really make sense a lot of the time. You know what I mean? And so looking at this, what I would go ahead and say is, yeah, Solana may pull back. We have this ascending channel here. Generally, these do break to the downside eventually. But at the end of the day, if Solana's price is in a position in which it can not only clear the 786 level, break the idea of a double top forming here. I think first stop, pit stop, $669 is my target for this bull run. But if things get really crazy, again, $2,230 isn't, from a technical perspective, out of the scenario, one would say.
Yeah. No, and I think most people are coming around to the thought process that technical analysis isn't just lines and circles, because it's human psychology. Like if enough people are looking at anything, it's going to change how people think about the market. So that is interesting. I will say that seemed like a higher Fibonacci than what you were showing on Bitcoin, right? So that would be like a more aggressive scenario. Is that just because it's an altcoin, so you think it could run faster or higher, or is it something else?
So the thing about it is, we generally speaking, we'll see altcoins go farther, faster, right? So for Bitcoin, if we're looking from a Fibonacci-based perspective, we have a 1.618, which is my mass extension, at a $176,000. Now, I think if we have a $176,000 Bitcoin, we can easily have a $2,000 Solana. Yeah. I think it's crazy. I think Solana at $2,000 doesn't make a lot of sense from a fundamental perspective, and I think the market cap is ridiculously high at that given point. But again, it's one of those things where you can't count out a thriving market, right? Whenever you have a asset class that is really just coming into form, that's not really, I think it's only 10 to 15% of what it truly can be one day. I don't think holding something like Solana out from being $1 trillion, especially if crypto gaming does what I think it's going to do, I think it's possible. But for Bitcoin, again, mass extension, $176,000. Minimal extension, I think $104,000, something like that makes sense. And then for Solana, again, $2,230 mass extension, $669 minimal extension.
Yeah. So, no, I like that. I appreciate the exact numbers too. Obviously, don't take what we say as financial advice, but like I appreciate you actually giving real numbers as opposed to just like, oh, it could 5 to 20x or something like that. Right. I will say too, Bitcoin, if it goes up to 176,000, somewhere around like a $3 to $3.5 trillion market cap. Solana going up to 2,200 is still under $1 trillion, like just under $1 trillion. So I don't think it's crazy if we get to a 10 or $15 trillion market. I don't think that's crazy. And I know some people are talking about, like we've always talked about, diminishing returns. Some people are talking about actually returns getting higher from now on because we've had so much Bitcoin hit the market. That's something we talk about a lot on the channel. But 93% of the supply has hit the market in the last 15 years. And Bitcoin's gone in 50,000x from $1, so, or 40,000x. So the fact is, like, we haven't seen a supply shock really yet. We're just starting to see that. So that could cause the market to explode, in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts on Cifi. This is one you talked about, like some people hate you for Solana for getting in early and keep on, and you're talking about, and they always want to hear the next crypto, and you're like, Solana still is the next crypto, like still buy that. And people, I did not get in with as great a gains on Cifi as you did with Solana, so I imagine it's even amplified. But I'm up like 200% or 300% from my first buy a couple months ago on Cifi, and I'm kind of curious your thoughts on the chart.
It's extremely ridiculous how well Cifi is done. Now, one thing to consider is the smaller in the market cap you go, the least efficient / effective technical analysis will be. The reason that I say that is if you have a $1 million market cap crypto and you have one whale who decides I'm done with this, they might just so happen to drop at 80%. There's nothing a chart will show you or tell you that can predict that, right? But the thing about it is the bigger you get, again, the less impact that one individual has, right? That individuality starts to get reduced. And then, in my opinion, the crowd effect begins to kind of take more place, and then by that nature means that the psychology of investors takes more place, meaning that technical analysis is more effective. A long way to say, the bigger they get, the better the TA, the smaller they get, the worse the TA. Cifi is in a bit of a middle ground right now because it's just maybe getting a little bit big enough to where it's actually valuable to look at his chart. But what you can see from the chart is a very, very clear picture of what's happening here, okay? Now, again, people might say it's all lines, it's all rah-rah and craziness, but there's similarities. There's things that you cannot deny here, okay? From a first basis, a first perspective, what do we have? Well, obviously, it was in a macro downtrend, clear as day. You can see that here. You obviously put in your first low here. You put in your second low here. They gave you a predictable third low. Descending wedges, descending channels have a very rare chance at breaking to the downside, extremely rare. They have an even rarer chance of breaking to the downside and not recapturing back within that zone that it was in. Cifi breaks through the bottom side of this, holds some support, puts in the double bottom on a daily basis, puts this in, clears back into the zone. That test holds it as support and starts to take off. This was a fundamental re-entry of a descending channel. That technically means the likelihood of a breakout to the upside now increases by 70 to 80%. What happens next? Cifi breaks out and goes straight up. What surprised me was there was no macro back test. It did not care. It genuinely didn't care. And that's what you have to understand. This is a smaller cap crypto. So when whales are buying, it doesn't need to back test. It doesn't have to go back. Interestingly enough, there's one moment where we finally saw this run slow down before the slowdown at the all-time high. Where was that slowdown? What box are we in? 786 box, right? It's almost predictable. You know what I mean? It's almost predictable that if you're buying right before we enter that zone, you're making a mistake, in my opinion. I would understand that it's likely going to slow down, at least for a little bit, and in that slowdown is the time to be buying. We got the hammer, right? I'm not really big on the patterns thing, but we have the hammer here, clear indicator that we're likely going to continue this move. We went all the way up to the all-time high on this chart, at least for Bybit. We wicked into it. We're getting closing below it. And so obviously if Cifi does at some given point break above this with a close, I think that, if we're going to talk about extensions, a $7.20 Cifi upwards to a $14 Cifi is within the realm of possibilities, especially considering how big crypto gaming could be. I mean, I don't see a reason as to why not. So this Cifi looks extremely bullish.
Yeah. And that chart doesn't even show Cifi in the last bull run. Like, it was still small enough. Cifi got up to $16, $17 in the last bull run. So I wonder too. I mean, that's a key level, I think, to watch for. But the crazy thing is, like, say we get up to $16, $17, a lot of the time these altcoins will run 30% a day for multiple days. So it could, 2 days after 16, 17, it could be at 30 easily.
Yeah.
And honestly, for whoever's watching this, like, the first time I looked at Cifi in over a year was because they reached out about doing a partnership. Like, they wanted to advertise. This is when Cifi was around $1. And I looked at them, I said yes, and then I dug a lot deeper, and that's why I wanted to start buying, because I knew that they were a good project, but I just hadn't looked at them in a while. So, like, some people get so pissed off at advertising, but sometimes it forces you to look at the companies that actually have money, that are going to spend money to get more eyeballs on them. And this was around the same time that Alex Becker was talking about. Leo Trades had been in on it. This is the kind of stuff that we're talking about more in HGACCESS, because we're talking about some of the projects that are reaching out to us, willing to spend money, that want to grow and have the capital to do it. Like, in a normal business, you wouldn't be pissed off or thinking that it was bearish if the business was advertising. Like, it'd be bad if they weren't advertising. Yeah. So again, there's a link to that underneath the video. We're going to be talking about all that, giving tons of alpha there. But I appreciate you giving the thoughts on that one, Tyler, even though it's smaller. I think that might be one of those ones. As they get smaller, it's probably more about narrative. and more about fundamentals than even TA a little bit. Let's move on though. What are your favorite cryptos right now? Maybe going from, do you want to go smallest or biggest first?
I'll go biggest to smallest.
Okay.
Save the exciting stuff at the bottom.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
50%, it's 51% right now, but 51% of my portfolio is Bitcoin. I don't cover Bitcoin a ton on my channel just because I think it's a market that's saturated enough. People know what Bitcoin is. I don't need to bring any more information about that. I do talk about it in like the private communities, but Bitcoin is 51% of my portfolio, so I would say clearly that's my favorite because that's what I hold. In terms of altcoins, let's kind of go down to the top 10. Solana, it's just easily the pick in my opinion because it relates to my personality a lot. That's people don't understand that each one of these cryptos has their own personality. Each one of these layer ones has its own personality. You have something like Solana, for example, that's going to move fast. It's going to make mistakes. It's going to correct those mistakes and try to keep pushing forward. It's not going to take as much of a measured approach. And that's kind of how I've always been, especially as a businessman. It's like, we're going to make a decision. We're just going to go for it. And we'll correct what we need to correct along the way. Yep. Then on the other end, you have the ADA Cardanos, right? In which it's like, slowly but surely, peeking my head through every door before I walk into it. That's just not my style, but it is some people's style, right? And so Solana matches my personality a lot more, and I invest in the things that match my personality. Going down to your top 25, I'm a huge Caspa guy. I think Caspa has that Solana energy. I think obviously Caspa is a lot less centralized than Solana is, so that makes it even more appealing from a crypto investor perspective if you're really focused on decentralization. So that's a huge pick. Now, going down to some of the small ones, there's a ton, right? There's a ton of them, but I've been big within the crypto gaming sector. That's just my focus. That's kind of like my little baby at this point now, where I'm just watching it, nurturing it, trying to make sure it does well, because in my opinion, crypto gaming is the easiest bridge into the real world that cryptocurrency has, right? Mm-hmm. I think obviously there's a ton of things. There's credit cards, things like this. But if someone has a credit card that's crypto-based, but they don't understand crypto, it does not matter. But someone can play a game that's crypto-based, and all they need to know is I get these little things called Solana, and they real money, and I can sell them here and make money. And that enough is an entry in its own. When you pair that up with the fact that the gaming industry itself has been boring, it's been dead, it's not doing anything whatsoever for years and years at this point, it's a perfect catalyst for growth. And so for me, I've been big within the crypto gaming scene. Cifi is high in my list. For those, all the way down to the small ones. There's a company called Diga. It's a company that I personally have done work with behind the scenes, advisory work, things of that nature, in which they have a whole bunch of different platforms that they're developing as well. They're like $1-2 million market cap right now, but they already have fully developed games. And so for me, that's one of those picks where it's like, well, crypto gaming does well, they'll probably 100x or 200x. And so I also want to be a part of that. So that's kind of my general breakdown, but there's so many winners in between those two, obviously.
Yeah. And what we've said before is a rising tide raises all ships, or however that goes. Like, most cryptos will probably do well during the next bull run, so don't overthink it. One thing that I've said to several people, like when people were, I'm bullish on Solana, but people were super bearish on Ethereum because they hadn't done anything in a while, and then Solana had gone in 10x, and they're wondering if they should flip in and out from ETH to Solana. I think that's one of the ways that people lose money, is just like not investing at the wrong time, but flipping between cryptos. Like, you can be bullish the entire market and still lose money because you just go to the shiny object. So just like figure out what you like, dollar cost average, and you'll probably do fine over the next bull run. These are just some of our favorites. So of course, like, maybe you want to take a look at them. We'll probably keep on talking about them. That's something that I always pay attention to with some other big creators too. Like, if someone likes something, they're probably going to talk about it to their millions of subscribers for the next year and a half. But always do your own research. Tyler, is there anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up?
I think that's about it, man. At the end of the day, it just comes down to, I've been so adamant, whether it's here, whether it's in HGACCESS, whether it's in my own private communities, is simply just tell people, establish a strategy and stick to it. Yeah. It's about to get crazy. This is obviously me and yours. We've been through multiple cycles at this point, bear and bull markets, and it's just, we see the same thing every single time. If it's in a bear market and you get too tied into the foam or the bad stuff, you're for sure going to lose. For sure going to lose. 2023 was supposed to be one of the worst years ever for crypto. Like, that's what some people said. You have inflation, you have this, you have that, you have regulation, you have this, you have that. What happened? It was boring, don't get me wrong, but what happened? You lose. It's the same thing. If we go into a bull market and you get tied into the FOMO, everything is the next shiny object. Every single thing is the next big thing. This is the next safe moon, whatever. This is the next Bitcoin, this is the next Ethereum, whatever. You're going to for sure lose. Yep. You establish a strategy. You organize that strategy that suits your actual real life, not just when you're excited, that actually fits when you're not in a good mood, when you're having work problems, when you're having financial issues, marital issues, whatever. Something you can stick to pretty much no matter what. And if you can stick to a general strategy that's based off of rationale, before we get into the excitement, before all the bullishness happens and you make irrational decisions, if you can make a rational plan before all the craziness starts, I mean, I think anyone who does that with a good Asia strategy is a winner. And our whole goal is to keep being winners and keep making winners. So, we'll just keep it going.
I love it. Yeah. Make sure that you make that plan now because you're going to be most bullish at the worst time. So just put that in your head now. Tyler, thanks so much for coming on. I'll leave links to your stuff underneath the video. We'll have to do another one soon.
Absolutely.
All right. See you, man.